Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Yeah, this video is not going to be so much different from the last time. Yeah, my last video I was just showing you guys how I was just putting up some bracing ready to hold the studs in place. And basically what I'm going to do in this video is basically a continuation. There's a few more bracing that I have to do, and in addition to that, what I'll be doing is I'm going to be doing a little fixing up on the roof. Yeah, I just hope I'll have enough sufficient time to really share that with you guys. Some areas I want to put two bracing where I've put one and to put another one, and then on the roof I want to put some rafters. Let me see if I can show you guys that. I say rafters, but really it's like a dummy rafter. Well, what do you call it, a ladder or something, like you see up there. I don't know, I hope you can see it because it seems like it, but you see those little pieces that going across here on this side. I'm gonna have to put the same thing on this side here so it can match up with that. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I do have a ladder, so what I might have to do is see if I can put a scaffold somewhere around here to really get that done. Yeah, that's about what I can do for today. Today's Sunday and it's already after 2, so you know I don't have much time, so I'll see what I can record for you guys. So stay tuned. Okay, sorry about this, but let me just show you guys something. All right, yeah, I finished brace up. I am on a ladder right now. Yeah, I finished put the pieces that I wanted to put. I also placed a scaffold. I deliberately put this piece shorter than the others because I wanted it to be level with this one, so that I could just place a scaffold there so that I could go ahead to put the stuff for the roof. And you can see that I have already done it. The thing is, I couldn't record that, obviously. Well, I tried letting my camera hang out a bit, but it ended up falling all the way down there, and so hopefully it didn't get damaged at all. So right now I only had 4 pieces to put. 1, 2, 3. I have the last piece here in my hand to show you guys how I've been doing it. Is, as you can observe, it has a notch in it. So right now the length of this is about 12 and a half inches. Yeah, and the reason I'm putting a notch, because if you observe, this is the last rafter, and the last rafter end up falling in front of that top plate instead of falling at the back because of how this didn't go properly. So that's one of the faults of the building, you know, and if you don't know, you wouldn't really observe it. So this is actually like a fault where I allow the rafter to go inside, because initially it's supposed to go on top of that, but because it couldn't fit on top of that, I let it go inside. So as a result, I have to notch that little piece to go onto the rafter, and that's why we have that little notch. That's why we have that little notch there. I don't know which area to direct that for that to look clear, but in my eyes it's extremely dark. I can't really see, but I'm sure the video will be clearer, right? So really and truly, it has to notch and sit, and I screwing it. I'm giving them 2 screws. As you can see here, 1, 2 screws here, and I'm also giving them a screw. I don't know if you can see because I'm not seeing. I'm giving them a screw right on this side there to just lock it in. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. But because I have basically haven't really showed any progress, what I'm going to tell you guys is this, right? There are a lot of people, you know, they would like to do work like this, and sometimes they want to use a tape and they can barely even use a tape. So I'm going to show you guys basically how to use a tape, or to understand what the tape really tells you. Okay guys, so this is the tape that I use. I recently bought that at Do It Center. So it's Do It, it's actually their brand. So it says 1 inch by 30, basically 9 meters tape measure. So now it's interesting to know that so many young people, I mean, I don't refer to older people that in the business for long, but so many young people, they don't know how to read a tape. You understand? And so today let's go and show you how to read a tape. Like if you want to measure anything, first of all, it's let's see if I can get a piece of wood. I have this small piece of wood right there. So let's say you want to measure this piece of wood, and you can see that here, this wood here is 1 inch and 5/8, exactly 1 inch and 5/8. Okay, let me just start with the hook. So the hook moves back and forth, hopefully an equal amount to the thickness, and that's so you make both inside and outside measurements accurately. And if it doesn't move, or if it moves too much, then your tape will more than likely will not be accurate. And normally most workers, when their hook doesn't move too much, what they do is they start at 1 inch, and basically when they measure, they just subtract 1 inch so that they get the actual measurement that they're looking for, whether it be a length or height or whatever you are measuring. And then that limits your chances of error. But however, the downside to this is if you are measuring a long distance, you can't work on your own because you cannot use the hook. And secondly, which might not work so well for some people, is that can get people that can get very easily distracted, is that you have to keep remembering to remove that inch. And if you forget, then you end up with an even greater error than the fault of the hook. And in a lot of cases, when measuring short distances, maybe between 3 to 5 inches, then some people might just ignore the numbers on the tape and just count it, and just count the numbers of inches themselves. Then again, if you are measuring something like a house, then that little error that can be caused by the hook is not so much of a problem. But of course, if you're looking for a higher level of accuracy, maybe for something smaller, then you might want to remove that inch. Now let's look at the lines, like on a ruler or the scale or whatever you want to call it. Right? On that particular measuring tape, we have both metric meters and imperial feet and inches. Now I don't use metric unless I am working with a design that's in metric. But for the most part, I use feet and inches. I mean, all our drawings are in feet and inches. That's what we use on a regular in Dominica. Another thing I like about working in inches is that it really helps you to master your understanding in calculating fractions. In my opinion, I think it's easier to visualize than that of metric. Like for example, I can watch a piece of wood and say that looking like a 5 feet long wood, and even if I know that 5 feet is about 1.5 meters, I still cannot really fully visualize it in meters. I'd have to visualize it in feet first and then convert it in meters in my head. You understand? So it's like as if it takes a longer process, if you know what I mean, right? For this video, I'm only going to go through the imperial side of the tape. I'm not going to go through the metric side. As I tell you, it's imperial, that's common in Dominica. And I don't know, I might be biased, but I find it more practical. Now, have you ever given someone a tape measure? Maybe they wanted to measure something, and maybe that paper with the information as to how long the tape measure is not there, and and the person will ask you, how long is that tape? Because they whatever they want to measure might be a serious length, and they want to know whether your tape is long enough. So they might ask you, how long is that tape? Now, if you are that kind of person who would have a measuring tape in your hand, and because the paper and so on is missing, you'd ask, how long is that tape, and that's because you have never noticed when the first thing when you open the tape is it gives you how long the tape is right there. See that? It tells you 9 meters and it also tells you 30 feet. You know, a lot of people have never really recognized that, because most times when people go to measure something, they just take the tape and they just stretch and they measure in and they pass the area where it tells you that the tape is either 25 feet long or 30 feet long, you know. And some people never really get to see that. It's interesting. Now the biggest numbers on the tape represents the inches, and the lines in between basically represents how much an inch is divided into, basically based on the tape. And that's why I said that it helps you to master your understanding in calculating fractions. First, it's divided in half, and note that for every division the line varies from the longest to the shortest. Those that represents an inch, they are the longest, and then it drops down to half an inch, then it drops down to quarter an inch, then it goes to 1/8, then it goes to 16th. Now, the reason I'm in between 14 and 15 is just to note to you that most tape measures, they normally stop right here. But this tape measure brings us a bit further, you know, and it also gives us divisions for 1 in 32 as well. But sadly, it only gives us those divisions within the first 1 foot of the tape. As you can see, this is just the first 1 foot. We have those 32 divisions. And then from there on, we have the usual setup, which is basically from 1 inch to 1/16. You know, with of course 1/16 being the smallest, and in this case 132 will be the smallest, but usually it's 1/16. Now let me just tell you how we normally call out a tape. But anyway, but before I do, I think I'll tell you how we don't call out a tape. You know, first of all, we don't say 1 inch and 2 little dashes. You know, I've had people that tell me, you know, 4 inch and 3 little dashes. We also don't say 1 inch and 2/8. You know, some people do, but it's not practical. It's not practical to say 1 inch and 2/8. You know, because really and truly we want to call it out in the most simplest form. We want to make sure that we simplify the fraction when we calling out the tape. So instead of saying 1 inch and 2/8, we simply say 1¼ inch, you know, because 2/8 is simplified to 1/4. Now let me just go through each stroke and tell you what it's called. And you know, just because I know that the majority of tapes go down to the lowest to 16th, I'll use this part of the tape and I wouldn't go down as far as the 32. Let's say we are in between 14 and 15. The first stroke between 14 is that will be 14 and 1/16. Now the second stroke is not 14 and 2/16. You understand? This second stroke, this will be 14 and 1/8. Now the stroke after that is not 14 and 1/8 and a half. You understand? But it is 14 and 3/16. That's what it is. It's 14 and 3/16. So I hope you get the drift by now. So now, yeah, so after the 3/16, we have 1/4 inch. Then follows 1/4 inch. We have 5/16. Then we have 3/8. And then after the 3/8, we have 7/16. And then 7/16, we have 1/2 inch. This is 1/2 inch. Then after the 1/2 inch, we have 9/16. Then follows 14 and 5/8. Then we have 14 and 11/16. Then we have 14 and 3/4. then we have 14 and 13 16, and then we have 14 and 7/8, and then we have 14 and 15 16, and that brings us to 15. Now let me just help you to simplify the use of the tip. First of all, I already told you that the lines vary in length for each of the division. So one of the things that you can keep in mind is that the shortest lines represents the 1/16. And it's called 1/16 because that line represents where the inch is divided into 16 parts. So once you fall on the shortest line, you are on a 16th. Then is to realize what 1/16 it is that you fall on. Let's say you fall on let me give you an example here again. Let's say you fall on 11 16. Let's say that's 13 and you fall on 11 16. This here is 11 16. Now how I know this is 11 16? Because we know that this is divided into 16, and obviously we know that half of 16 is 8, and 8 here has already been calculated for us here already. So because we know half is 8, so all we do, we just add 3 more, and that brings us to 11 16. So that brings us to, let's say, 13 11 16. And that is basically 3 strokes after ½ inch. 1 2 3, and you have 11 16. Another example is, I know that this last stroke here represents 7/8. That'll be 13 and 7/8. And the reason I know that is because we know that the 8th is divided into 8 parts. So therefore, obviously, the one before the last will obviously be 7/8. Also, I know that this stroke here is 13 16, because if I know the entire thing is 16, then all I do is count back 1 2 3 from 16, and I know that this stroke here is 13 16. So really and truly, when it comes to reading a tape, the key thing here is that you need to be able to identify the increments that you are dealing with based on the length of the line or the stroke, however you want to call it. So you'll know if you are dealing with ½ inch, quarter inch, 1/8, or 1/16. Then you count forward or back, not from the beginning of the inch, but from the nearest ½ inch. And with a little practice, in time, all the fractions will come to you. And this is applied to any measuring scale, by the way, not just this measuring tape, whether you have a ruler that's in inches or whatever the case may be. Yeah, so anyway, that's about it for this video, and thank you guys for watching. Yeah, and see you guys in the next one. All right.